Hi, Dr. T. The leader that I chose to interview was my elementary and junior high school teacher, Mrs. Edna Strong. And first off, she was just the most incredible teacher. And to me, she is the best example of a leader. And I think that many teachers don't realize that they actually are not only teachers, but they're also leaders, because as we've been taught in the class and as we know, leadership is about being able to inspire people. And who better than to inspire people than teachers? And they, if they're good teachers, that is, they inspire their students every day. And not just about the class that they're teaching, but they inspire them to be the best versions of themselves. So Mrs. Strong, she agreed to an interview, and she actually lives not far from me. I'm in Sheepshead Bay, Brooklyn, and she's over at Batchelder Street, so she's right here. It's just too funny. But she agreed to the interview, and when I told her what the interview was about, she couldn't believe it, because she does not view herself as a leader at all, which is, she most certainly is. Her background is similar to mine, which is also what made me want to use Mrs. Strong, and Mrs. Edna Strong, by the way, if I didn't say that. She also is a graduate of Brooklyn College, and I am a huge supporter of the CUNY system and believe in Brooklyn College and everything about it. So that was kind of nice for us to be able to talk about our experience there. But what was very interesting for me is when we discussed the time she was going to college, she said that only certain careers were still considered acceptable for women because she went to college in the early 70s. And she said that although things were much better than they were before that, you know, there was still a big push to have, female rights. And, you know, we talked about like how Fortune 500 companies are still, you know, so far below the percentage they really should be at to make them even remotely equal to the amount of male leaders. But it was interesting to see, because although we've progressed from the 70s, we still have quite a long way to go. So let me tell you a little bit about her, in addition to just the fact that she's from Brooklyn and went to Brooklyn College and was a teacher. But one of the first classes I had with Mrs. Strong was Shakespearean English, and she taught us so much about Shakespeare and how to make Shakespeare sound like regular everyday English. But what was the biggest thing for me that stayed with me throughout my adult life and my childhood was that I was always afraid to talk, extremely shy. I was a great student, but I was just terrified and afraid to hear myself speak and think. And she made me the nurse in Romeo and Juliet because it has one of the biggest speaking roles. And it was one of the best things that she could have done for me, because she made me feel like I'm able to have a voice. And she used to tell me all the time, "You're a woman, hear me roar." And because of her, I felt the strength to continue on in school and go for my MBA. She's also who inspired me in many ways to want to be a professor later on in the future. So talking about her leadership style, when, like I said, when you ask her about it, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my computer because I jotted down notes. She didn't view herself as that, but to me, she was like the ultimate servant leader. She gave herself to us. She didn't even realize that she was inspiring lifelong memories and faith in her students. And she made everything about the betterment of us. And it wasn't just about the class, it was just the betterment of us as people. And she made sure we always did our best. And she also made sure that not only did we have to do our best, but we had to be the best version of ourselves. And we had to give that to other people. You always had to give it back and pay it forward. When you were in Mrs. Strong's class, you knew you were safe too. You knew that this was a safe space where you could tell her whatever was going on in your life, and not only would you learn, but that she would be there for you like a parent and a mentor. And that was something amazing. She just created the most safe and peaceful environment, yet an environment of learning and constant growth, which to me is one of the foundations of leadership, is constantly evolving, learning, growth, and trust. And she when I asked her, what do you consider a leader? She actually brought up, I went to Catholic school, and she said that she felt that one of the most inspirational leaders, and I'm by no means a Bible scholar, was Jesus Christ. And when you think about it, she's got something to what she's saying. She said that he inspired many, many, many people, and that he passed along a message of we should be there for our fellow people, and we should do the best that we can for them, and always look at people and treat them the way we would like to be treated, and that we should never judge them. And it's ironic for me to incorporate Jesus and the Bible into leadership, but it was an interesting take on it, and I definitely understand what she was saying. And when we talked further, I asked her who inspired her, and her answer, in a way, because it's Mrs. Strong, it didn't surprise me. She said that her students taught her the most about life. And in addition to her students, she said Jesus. And she said that she always tried to teach with an open heart. And to me, that was more her leading with an open heart. And believe me, she never pushed her faith down anyone's throat either. It was just about like that golden rule for her. When we talked a little bit about leadership and what it is to be a good leader and in corporate America, I asked her, what do you feel about the culture of mediocrity? And I know it's ironic because I just done one of my packbacks about that, but we talked about it because she always told us, you have to do your best. If you can't do any better, I'll accept that, but it has to be your best. And when we talked about it, she said as a teacher that's one of the things that teachers aim to make sure their students never do. They never want their students to just say, hey, I did good enough. They always want their students to strive to be the best versions of themselves. And she had this quote, expression, and it's one of my favorites. I've heard it before, but hearing it from her just, resonated even more, ironically, for what I'm about to say. The quote was, more is more. And she said, less is never more. And she said that you can always study another 5 minutes more. You can always be there for your student another 5 minutes more. You can always believe in yourself another 5 minutes more. And it's so true, because that's how leaders need to be. They need to be willing to understand for an extra 5 minutes, willing to fight the fight for an extra 5 minutes, willing to be there for their team for an extra 5 minutes. So the other issue regarding leadership that we talked about, and it was a very long conversation, and I feel like this video is becoming quite long. I asked her, how does she feel about the lack of females in leadership roles? And she said that it was unbelievably frustrating to her, especially because, like I said, she did go to college in the early 70s. And she said, although that she feels things are much better now, she was so angry that it's not much better and that it's still something, a work in progress, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. And she feels very passionately about integrating more women into leadership roles, and especially roles that are usually defined by men. We talked a lot about how education is the great leveler and what opens most doors, but that there's still this glass ceiling, and unfortunately we haven't shattered yet. We've only cracked it, and we still need to break all that glass. And she said we need to do is continue to inspire each other, but not just women. Continue to inspire each other as human beings, and that we should never lose hope that things will get better. And that was just such an enlightening thing for me, because she's right. We need to always remember to keep that hope, because without hope, you have nothing else. And one of the biggest takeaways from just a great conversation with someone I respect and idolize so much was that you need to remember when you're leading, whether you think you're a leader or not, that people are watching, and that things are not about you. You need to be there for everyone else, and leadership is about everyone else and what you can create together and as a team. And that you should never let your ego get in the way, and that everyone around you should be encouraging and building them up and inspiring them, and that you should never ever put anyone down, and it should always be about the betterment of everyone, the organization, and just people in general, and in turn that will make you better. So I hope you enjoyed my interview with Mrs. Strong as much as I did, and I feel like I have learned so much about leadership in this course. So much, in fact, that I actually want to go back for my EDD or PhD in organizational leadership. So thank you, Dr. T, for a great semester.